All right. What are we talking about today? CREview. We're talking about how to optimize your CRE listings for maximum exposure going into 2025.
Sounds like an exciting topic.
Sounds exciting. Sounds like you can read it all on this piece of paper and have it all right there, but cool. We're going to go into some sort of obvious ways at first, some really interesting ways, and then some in-depth, sort of more knowledgeable marketing techniques that you can use.
Yeah, I think it's like the idea, like what inspired the topic to talk about, I think a lot of listings go unnoticed out there.
Yeah.
And in this world of digital and content that we live in now, you're competing with so much. So whatever ways you can use to get your listings into more feeds, into more people's view, I think that stuff's important, you know. And I think things are changing all the time, and I think going into this year, and I mean we're already in it, but what are the strategies, the plans that you can put into place that can help make your listing stand out a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's the typical situation of there being a huge pool of fish. How do you stand out and be the little Nemo in the crowd? And I think it goes beyond, making your picture look better than the one next to it. Yes, that's a great thing, but what other things can you do behind the scenes? Maybe some back end business that you can do to
There's
help.
back end stuff. There's all sorts of little things, little tricks you can use.
Yeah. So that's what we're gonna unpack.
We're already unpacking.
We're unpacking. Yeah.
As you speak.
I'll pack in my bags.
The first thing for me is like the platforms. The platforms give you there's all these platforms out there that give you the ability to do all these. That's why they've been made, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's typically like when you see something on the internet and you see like add alt text. You can do that on Instagram post. You can add alt text. What is that? No one knows what that does. Doesn't help you. Who knows? So we just do the usual, and yeah, that's why things like that don't ever change.
Yeah, and it is those little things. It is those little things, like if you take the time to do them, the platforms and the algorithms, they use that information to serve your content's people.
Yeah.
So if you're working within those platforms and the things that they want, your stuff is going to go further, and it's going to outcompete the others that aren't doing those sort of things.
Yeah.
And you have to do everything. There's lots of little things, but
Yeah.
there's some bigger ones that are probably quite important.
Yeah. I think properties sell themselves. You just got to give them the
Gotta
platform
give them the
to do
legs,
it.
yeah.
It needs the legs to run.
So like, I mean, like something like, that your LoopNet, your CoStars, Prixies, all of those. Those are really, obviously, like everyone knows that those are super important for the listings.
And your listings must be on there.
They've got to be on there. They've got to be on there, and you've got to work within what they want you to do. But then you've got to also be creative in the way that you got to help them stand out from everything else that's on there, because there's thousands of listings and there might be hundreds in your area alone. So how do you make sure that when a potential buyer or leaser or whatever is scrolling through those, what's the psychology in their mind to make them be like, oh, I like that one versus the next one in line?
Yeah, because we shop like human beings at the end of the day, whether it's a property or a new pair of shoes. The way you look at something online, it has that initial aspect of, does it attract your eye first?
So you're looking at, when you're looking for something, whether it's a commercial real estate property or, a new pair of sneakers, when you're going through that process, in your mind, there's certain things that you're looking for. So if you're looking for white sneakers by Adidas or Nike, your brain is looking for that image of the tick or of the stripes.
Yeah.
It's looking for white. It's looking for the names in the descriptions. So
your first picture is not going to be the sole of the shoe, like,
right.
you're going to make sure
exactly.
Yeah.
So all of those little things, you need to stand out when someone's going in that market and they're looking for something specific. They're pulling out, like their brain is pulling those things out as they're scrolling, and people scroll quickly, and if your ad, if your your listing has got those things and it's done in a better way than the next listing that has those things, that's when we're talking. You know, that's when you're going to start
Yeah.
getting more leads, etc.
Smelling the greens.
Yeah.
So
So we could go into a few of those things, like what are those things that you need to potentially put into your listings.
So where would you start? Like, you know, I'm a first time, or not a first time, I'm a novice lister. I'm putting my listings up on LoopNet. I've got an industrial property, you know, not pretty, but well, let's not even go with industrial. I've got a
No,
multifamily.
whatever. Like, doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Right? Like, industrial is harder because it's harder to take, I suppose,
Yeah.
of warehouses.
I've got a nice office space. I've got a nice retail space. You know, what is the first thing I should consider?
So visuals generally are the first thing that you need to look at, because that's the first impression someone gets. And first impressions, unfortunately, they do make the difference. You know, that first impressions last. And when you go into that, the quality of your visuals is huge. So, you know, you need to weigh up, is the juice worth the squeeze when it comes to how much effort and money you're going to put into the visuals. And because you can spend a lot of money,
Yeah.
but you can box smart as well at the center.
So imagery initially is
Imagery
the main.
initially is incredible.
Apart from all your information, obviously at this point you should have worded your information properly, whether you use ChatGPT to wordsmith it a bit in your descriptions and that.
Yeah, so I mean, the description side, we'll talk about that as well.
Okay, cool.
Because there's SEO proponents. But I mean, if you just had to start, the first thing that, you know, I would think of is, okay, cool, we've got to make this stand out from a visual point of view.
Yeah.
Because that's going to give you the edge.
Yeah.
Initially.
I mean, little things that we see from our side. I mean, Caleb and I were looking at it, was it 2 days ago? We saw an image of the interior of a building and we're like, oh wow, like I turned my head and it caught my eye and I was like, that's a cool picture. Like, that looks nice. And it was because it was shot properly by a professional that was using the right camera and the right lens. Like the right lens for photography of properties, you know, that doesn't warp. All the lines were horizontal and vertical. It was well lit. And, you know, it's little things like that, you know, turn your head and catch your eye, and versus a cell phone camera, or, you know, yes, it's a good thing. It's not necessarily a horrible thing, but
it's good.
it does separate the
It
two quite.
It does. You know, the cream rises to the top.
Yeah.
When it comes to stuff like that, and we're visual beings. You know, everything. We see things that catch our eye, and you know, if something catches your eye, your interest is drawn to it, and your brain is going to make calculations immediately.
Like that just did to
Like,
you now.
you know,
Yeah.
watching girls surfing on longboard.
Yeah, I saw your eye now.
Try not to look there.
Yeah.
But that's exactly it. It's that first initial visual impression is so important. So whether you are, you know, doing like HD photography, whether you're using your phone, you know, drone footage, all of those things, they make a difference in how you attract that person into your listing. And once you've got them there, then you can, you know, they committed to an extent.
Well, they're interested.
They're
yeah.
interested, right? So
Yeah.
you've got to keep that hook going.
And everything else has to follow suit. So apart from the visuals, what else can you, what's like the next step? You got your cool, your great pictures, you use the proper photographer, and, you know, you put it all together. What do you sort of do after that?
Well, obviously you need to have some substance within that listing. Can't just be nice pictures, because anyone, you know, the photos will only go so far and the visuals will only go so far. But if the other things in your listing, from a, you know, the information that you're providing, the way you're selling that listing, if that doesn't tick the boxes in that person's mind, then you've lost them. They're going to go somewhere else, and then they will again look for the visual to grab them, and then they're going to go into that, and they hopefully get the information that they want. So
we're talking nitty gritty, the actual meat, the ones and zeros.
once, you know, if we're talking like if you're using LoopNet or CoStar or whatever, once they click through your listing, the information that you have, the
Yeah.
Really important.
And you're also going to filter, so make sure that you maybe look at the filters that people might be applying and make sure that you.
So it's really important that you're talking to the audience that would be interested in this exact property. So within your portfolio, that property is going to have a specific type of audience that has a specific mindset to what they want to see in the information. And you need to write that, the content is in
Speak that language.
speak that language to
Yeah.
that person. If it's a restaurant space, you want to talk their language.
Yeah,
The hairdresser, you want to talk their language.
Yeah, especially in this industry, I think you go down such a deep rabbit hole of like your own terms and way of speaking
Yeah.
that you actually got to
A
think like.
lot of these guys, they don't, they might not be experienced investors or whatever. So it's important to understand who your audience is. If you're talking to experienced investors and those are the type of people you want to buy this,
Yeah.
then absolutely.
Yeah, but you don't want to limit yourself.
Yeah.
So you've got your images, you've got your your details, your important information that you need. Is that it, or what else can you do? Because I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential in these platforms that people don't necessarily know about or know in terms of, especially things like SEO, search engine optimization. What little tactics can we use of those to help the listings?
So the listings platforms themselves and Google use specific keywords to help the platform actually place listings. So obviously you're going to be putting in your main information, but stuff like the property overviews, the description, all those things, even the your title, the SEO behind that, using the right keywords is very important, because people, especially with property, they search for a very specific term. So if they're looking for a retail space in Lake Enenor, Orlando, they're gonna put that into Google, or they're gonna put it into LoopNet, or they're gonna start searching, Orlando in LoopNet or whatever. So if you're using those keywords in your titles and your descriptions, etc., LoopNet is gonna the algorithm is gonna use that to help people find your listings. Obviously, the Google also uses those keywords within LoopNet and CoStar. So if they're just typing into Google, like, I'm looking for a retail location for my store in Orlando, but more specifically in this specific area of Orlando, there aren't going to be a million of those search queries. They're not going to be a ton of them. Okay. So you have a really good opportunity to be found by those people, because it's only going to be a certain amount of people looking for such a specific niche. So the more you understand the keywords that you need to use in your listings, the better your chances are of being found within LoopNet, but also within Google.
Yeah. Let's talk about like, the rise of AI. Everyone's using ChatGPT to help write descriptions and titles and all these things. And especially when it comes to a listing, I think there's two schools of thought. Like you do one, like the obvious, just the black and white information is what it is. And on the other side, you got a bit of a salesy wordsmithed version where people are like latest, like hottest turnkey property in Connecticut, like they're going, like they're leaning in hard there versus the other, the old school way of selling. Like which way is like the best way going forward in terms of giving your property more legs?
I think you've got to find like the sweet spot. I think it's easy now to use AI to go too far, go over the top. I think before the likes of ChatGPT, and the AI sort of revolution, it was a much bigger job to go in and write, property descriptions for every listing. It was like, it took a lot of time, I think, for people. Whereas now it's obviously a lot easier to do all that stuff. But I mean, this is a whole other video on its own, but it is a massive time saver to use, the AI GPTs. So it's definitely something you should be using, but it's also something that you need to just take a little bit of care around, especially in terms of the wording that it uses. It can sometimes sound very fake,
Almost, I think also with listings, for example, you don't want to sell it too hard in the information. Like, you don't want to be like, this listing is going to change your life because, you know, it's like the hottest thing on the market that's going to be gone in minutes. Like, people
Yeah, people are like,
can go over the top as well, and it kind of,
I think if you're in the industry, you know what is good and what isn't good. So I think use the AIs to help you, but fine tune it, make sure it's right. Don't make it too long. But I always like to say, treat it as treat your listing as a microsite. So basically, its own little website. So you want to
it's like
have
the landing page.
exactly, you want to have all of the information that someone would need right there, whether it's a link to its own actual, your property website where the listing is, whether it's a, own download page or the PDF that they're going to download.
Have all the resources there, like
Everything.
so you have all the resources there, like your floor plans, your
Have as much in there as
Yeah.
you can, so people don't need to go anywhere else.
refer back to if you need
And I
to.
mean, I think most people are doing all of this.
Mm.
I just think there are a couple of important things in terms of the visuals and using the SEO side. And if you can get, AI to help you with that.
Cool. And then, like, how do you know if you're, so now you've posted your listing, you think you're all set. How do you know whether or not you're doing a good job, whether your listing is standing out from the rest, and then also allowing you to make those changes while it's running? What do you look at? I know there's a lot of data, analytics. Who does that? Who's that for? What does any of it mean?
Yeah, I mean, this for me is probably the most crucial part of all of this, because you're putting a lot of time and effort and money into this property. And you put a lot of time and effort into the listing itself to go onto these platforms. If you don't know how it's performing, how are you going to know what to do better for the next one? So the analytics side is incredibly important. And whether you're a broker doing listings or whether you're the marketing team, with all of your marketing, understanding how people are engaging with your listing and your post is crucial. So if you need to be looking at, are people clicking on your ad? Are people saving your ad on LoopNet? How long are they spending on your ads? So if the time that they're spending on your ad, obviously the longer they spend, the more they're interested in it. So that basically is telling you that what you have is good information. So you need to keep doing that type of thing. If they're clicking on your ad, they're spending 2 seconds there, then you're losing them somewhere, probably with the title or something up front. So understanding those analytics, and you can get that stuff from the platforms themselves, is incredibly important. And then also A/B testing, so different titles and so the different keywords. So you could try a few different titles for your listing to see what people are reacting to. You might get more clicks with this type of title versus another one. So testing the different types of titles, and then putting in what we call UTM tagging. So basically it's a form of code that would go onto your URL that helps you understand, when you're looking at your own analytics, where those people are coming from. So
and UTM tagging sounds super scary, but I mean, it's super easy.
It's very easy.
Like, you can do it for free on like a site like Bitly.
I mean, you could do it with AI now as
Yeah,
well. Like
yeah.
you can just put it into your GPT. Like, I need a UTM link for this, email campaign. The link
It's just a tracking code
It's
added.
basically just a tracking code that helps you understand. Okay, cool. I sent this email out.
Yeah.
And I got, I got this lead from that email campaign. So you're able to attribute it to that, which is hugely helpful in the long run. So, what I would say is every month, every week, if you could do it, have, a sort of actionable step-by-step, guide that you're looking at every month to look at the data that you're getting, and you can see, like, these ads are working, these are working. We're going to do more of this. And
Yeah.
basically, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, like, little things, like if you compare your Facebook Marketplace listings, your personal ones, to a listing on LoopNet, you know, sometimes you'll go look and you'll be like, why is no one inquiring about my surfboard I'm selling? You know, 3,000 people clicked on it, but not a single person inquired. Maybe it's too high. Yeah. Maybe I gotta decrease my price or make it seem more enticing. Maybe my pictures look too good for what it actually is or something, so it catches your eye, but you know.
There's a reason for every result, which is, you know, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's the same thing as like Tinder. You're swiping. Someone might have a really great first picture, swipe right. In the bio, you know, it's like a whole nother story. She's like, you know, a totally different person. You're not inquiring.
You're not.
You know,
Nobody's coming to.
It's all everything has to, everything is sort of built on top of the other part.
That's coming back to what we said in the beginning, because when someone is looking for something, they're looking for a specific set of things that if your listing matches all of those things, then you're in the money. But if you're missing a couple of those things, they're going to go find it somewhere else, because the world we live in, we can get anything we want at any time.
Yeah.
So if you don't meet the criteria of that person, you're out. Someone else is going to get that business.
Yeah.
So,
and with commercial real estate, that is happening from like a global scale, and especially like a national scale. Like, you know, so you might be speaking to an audience that you're familiar with in Louisiana, but someone in New York might be looking at that same area and have a different level of like where the bar is at. They're used to New York standards, and you know, if you just like, everyone in Louisiana knows that this is just how it is, and you know, we do the bare minimum, like in terms of what we're putting in the listing. The New York guy who like requires all these other things, you know, he's gonna look at that and be like, nah, I can't.
Yeah, I'm out.
I'm out. Yeah. So just to recap, what are the main points that we gotta remember when
Visuals,
posting a listing?
3 things that are gonna help your listings: visuals, SEO, analytics. Those are the 3 main things that, if you can get those right, you're gonna start standing out from everyone else, because you know that not everyone is doing all of this. Especially SEO.
They might be doing the one thing well, but the other not.
I think most people, when they hit SEO, like, I don't know how to do SEO, it's terrible.
That's how I feel. Like,
yeah, but it's really not that difficult. And AI can really help you do that now really well. So there are no excuses, really, to be honest.
Okay, cool. So look at your listings, make sure your imagery looks good, SEO looks good, look at your analytics, and
hopefully you'll start seeing some better results.
Should be in the money.
Yeah.
Boom.